Here we go. You can see Joseph Carrick there on your left on Ad Nauseam. Connor Mullaly, your 2022 Player of the Year. Golgar Yawgmoth on your right, leading on a turn 1 Delighted Halfling off of the Verdant Catacombs. Maybe the less talked about Lord of the Rings card. Still powerful nonetheless.
Yep, still a 1/2 for 1 that adds any mana for any spell as long as it's a legendary, and don't even try to think about counterspelling that. You can still subtlety it with those pitch elementals, can do lots of tricky things. Not many featured in this match, but we'll see what Connor can do with this additional mana lead.
Yeah, it does get to untap with it. Not too many removal spells in the Ad Nauseam deck. I believe that was just a Darkslick Shores and a passing of the turn. And, if you're Connor, remember, this is no deck list. You see Darkslick Shores pass. That is kind of a strange start. Not sure that, these players are familiar with each other, what they're playing. Connor, given the pause here on turn 2, I think is trying to deduce exactly what.
That's what that face looks like. Yeah, Connor's like, well, Darkslick Shores go. What does this mean? Like, most of the decks like Espergorios or maybe some new Satoto builds, they don't often play Darkslick Shores. They need their fetch lands, maybe get a surveil land. So Connor's like, I'm not sure what I'm going up against, but I'm still going to play Agatha's Soul Cauldron here and start to begin my shenanigans with one of those surveil lands.
Yeah, Underground Mortuary, hopefully I said that right, showing up, making its first appearance, and mills over a Wall of Roots, which is actually going to enable the Agatha Soul Cauldron to get to work right away, getting a counter on Delighted Halfling, and able to, look at this counter action. We're getting the -0, -1 counter alongside the +1/+1 to add Ignoble Hierarch to the bunch.
Wow. Okay. So this isn't opening C too much, but Surveilland's able to pitch a creature in the graveyard. Oftentimes you're looking for a Grizzlebrand or an Atraxa, but here we have a Wall of Roots and it's doing his job. Joseph has answered with the key card of his deck, Lotus Bloom, on some mana acceleration on his own, along with a Profane Tutor.
Yeah, putting his entire turn on suspend with Lotus Bloom and Profane Tutor. Gonna have a few turns to get stuff done. Connor, obviously looks to be a little bit excited. I think he is certainly familiar with Ad Nauseam, even if it has been quite a many years since he's played against it. Connor's something that's been around a long time in competitive Magic, and now gets on tap with a pile of mana and Agatha's Soul Cauldron. I mean, Carrick has all these cards suspended. He might not even get another turn if something like Yawgmoth's involved.
Yeah, Connor has access to 6 mana now on turn 3. What is he playing? Amulet Titan here? But that's so much mana to have access to. And now Connor, the ghost is up. Connor, like you said, is pretty much aware of what he's going against now. So now he can use some Young Wolf action. There is a Yawgmoth in Connor's hand. Let's see if he has maybe another one for some crazy persist shenanigans.
Okay, yeah, so we do deploy the Yawgmoth, and that one with Agatha's Soul Cauldron can get a little bit tricky. But, I think you still need a little bit more to get a deterministic kill. But, Carrick's entire, we're trying to get 3 more turns to this Lotus Bloom. I'm not even, like I said, confident about getting 1 more. Obviously does not have a kill dialed up right now or does not want to go for it. Does Connor as he passes the turn back to Carrick, who adds what looks to be another Darkslick Shores potentially and another Profane Tutor to suspend.
Yeah, so this Ad Nauseam deck, as you might guess, Ad Nauseam being the key card. So you will need at least 5 mana to cast the Ad Nauseam, and then generally you will need another mana so you can survive your Ad Nauseam with your Angel's Grace you cast beforehand, or maybe in response to. So, Connor knows that he's really in no fear of dying until Joseph gets to about 6 mana, and right now Joseph has 3, and I don't know if Joseph's going to have the 2 extra turns to use all that Lotus Bloom mana with his tutor spells.
Yeah, the first Profane Tutor maybe can try to help find him some answers. Doesn't even have white mana, it looks like, as, all these Darkslick Shores, and I believe that's actually an underground river. Don't actually make white mana, so we can't do any kind of, Angel's Grace trickery should Connor try to get a kill done, assuming that would even work in any capacity. Some of that stuff can get really, really wordy within the rules, as Connor does on end-step add Orcish Bowmasters to the mix. That gives 2 more creatures to sacrifice to Yawgmoth if he wants. But already, things looking to be coming up, Connor, very, very convincingly here right from the jump.
Hierarch wasn't attacking for 1, so there was something up there, and the Orcish Bowmasters adds more power. Now, Joseph does have 1 copy of Intervention Pact in his deck, so he could maybe fog a single creature, but Yawgmoth doesn't really attack with a single creature, but just a bunch of young wolves and creatures once they have an insurmountable amount of cards in their hand and power on the board, thanks to Yawgmoth and various counters shenanigans with Agatha's Soul Cauldron.
And there you see Connor actually leveraging a little bit of the Agatha's, flexibility alongside Bowmasters. That Orc army does have a counter on it, so got to add a little bit of mana there with the Delighted Halfling, and then actually do the Wall of Roots thing. So you can make 2 mana with just your Orcish army that you make, and now we've added Zulaport Cutthroat to the mix as well.
Yep, so I believe these dice maybe there's lots of different counters in the Yawgmoth deck. So we're trying to figure, which ones are -1 counters, which are -1, -0, -1 counters. And meanwhile, we have another Orchestra Masters, 2 more creatures have hit the battlefield, which Connor's happy to see as he's draining Joseph out there with the Zilpor Cutthroat. Every sacrifice, I lose a life, but you know what? How about you lose a life too, Joseph?
Yeah, I like this exchange. And of course, this is actually getting even more, I guess, aggressive from Connor's side. He doesn't even really need to go for it necessarily this turn, but getting that first Profane Tutor off, like I mentioned, could actually start to set up, Phyrexian Unlife, things of that ilk that can maybe prevent, Connor from getting it done next turn. And then he would actually get that requisite last turn. So Connor, going through the motions here a little bit, getting through creatures. And there is Court of Calling. I believe that is going to grab the second Undying creature and get the job done, as Connor is explaining exactly how he's going to kill Joseph Carrick. But what I can tell you is that is the end of game number 1. Those cards not coming off suspend for Carrick. No Ad Nauseam shenanigans here, and an explosive start for Connor Mullaly and his cool card.
Yeah, so normally we talk about a lot. What's the critical turn of a 4-mana over deck? What's the turn where things really start happening? And Connor was able to basically combo off on turn 4. Now he was unimpeded, but Joseph showed up with an Ad Nauseam deck, which isn't too big on interacting with your opponent. And Connor with that flip on that Wall of Roots on turn 2 was really actually instrumental in getting his engine going a little quicker than you might see. But as we now go into sideboarding for game 2, Drake, what do you think Joseph's going to try to bring in with his Ad Nauseam combo deck to fight this creature combo menace deck?
Yeah, so looking at the sideboard, it's certainly an interesting roster of cards. You got 4 Leyline of Sanctity. I don't know that it's on screen quite yet. I believe we just cut to us. Whatever. We'll get the Ad Nauseam deck on screen momentarily. And so we got 4 Leyline of Sanctity, 2 March of Otherworldly Light, 2 Pick Your Poison, 2 Teferi Time Raveler, 2 Veil of Summer, 1 Laboratory Maniac, 1 Rest in Peace, and 1 Spell Pierce. I don't actually like a ton. The Leyline of Sanctities don't really accomplish what you're seeking to accomplish in this matchup. And I would think in general, this matchup, especially if you're on the play, is going to be kind of good for you. So I want to make small adjustments that help you interact well. So I'm looking mainly at the March of Otherworldly Lights. You can maybe reach for the Pick Your Poison if you think there's spots where you want it, same with the kind of Veil of Summers, but I think the Marches are going to be the cards that you are the most interested in, as it looks like we might actually not have deck lists to get up for you. But yeah, not much to see here. This is going to be a combo deck looking to outrace. You mentioned 2 ships in the night before the match. I expect that to still be the strategy going into game 2 with some light adjustments to interact a little bit better. And I really like just like those 2 March of Otherworldly Lights to really make that happen.
Yeah, like you said, Connor has Pick Your Poison in his deck, and which is a great sideboard overall against Modern in general. But against the Yawgmoth deck, you have maybe a Cauldron you can nab with it, which Cauldron isn't the key piece of the Yawgmoth deck. It definitely enables a bunch of really cool things. But without a Cauldron, you can still play your creatures, play Yawgmoth, combo off, and kill. One card in particular I see in here that I really am excited to see is Rest in Peace. That does turn off all the Undying shenanigans that the Yawgmoth combo deck could be going up to. And also Agatha's Soul Cauldron, not so great when there's no graveyard.
True. It's probably better than Pick Your Poison if you are going to reach for something like that. 2 mana, a little unexciting to me. You can even pitch it though to your Marches, so whatever. You're still good.
Yeah, and with those 4 copies of Profane Tutors, Demonic Tutor by Just Give It Time, maybe kind of turns those Rest in Pieces into maybe 5 copies of it. There'll be a little slow, but maybe with a Pentad Prism with 2 copies in his deck, he can get these key sideboard cards in play. But now, and then from the Golgari Yawgmoth side, there's tons of cards you can bring in, but Ad Nauseam isn't really a contender in Modern. Like, you don't see that very often. So one advantage of that is there aren't tons of huge sideboard cards that people will bring in against the deck. No Rule of Law or other kind of taxing effects, especially from a green-black creature-oriented deck.
Yeah, with Connor's side, you bring in like Thoughtseizes, right? Like that's like just going to be generically good against these kinds of combo setups, especially with you on the draw. Being able to do some of that disruption is important. But on the play, you can just spend a bunch of Lotus Blooms or whatever, and then maybe he's got everything he cares about already dialed up in the exile zone. So yeah, I would expect small, modest adjustments from Connor as well. Like I said, Thoughtseize. Maybe if you want to reach for like Force of Vigors to try to tag like Phyrexian Unlife or like the Lotus Blooms in the upkeep or whatever before they can use the mana on their main phase, that kind of stuff. Probably not really worth it. Just kind of try to execute your combos as quick as you can, as there is that kind of namesake turn 1 suspend, Lotus Bloom, an island, and an island and a passing of the turn. And Connor starting out with Delighted Halfling once more.
Yeah, we do see in Connor's hand a copy of Haywire Might, the one of copy, of course, in the toolbox kind of deck, which would be really good to counter spell, in quotes, this Lotus Bloom, like you said, in the upkeep before you can play. You could also counter spell, we call that a removal for non-blue mages, this Pentad Prism that Connor has deployed in turn 2. And really, this is the exact start you want to see from the Ad Nauseam deck. You just want to deploy your mana, so eventually on maybe turn 4, you can, or turn 3, if you get lots of mana to enact your combo. And Connor here also has his own mana ramp in the form of Wall of Roots.
Yeah, I mean, Wall of Roots is great. It allows you to deploy, assuming you do have a land, which I do believe I see an Overgrown Tomb in hand. Allows you to deploy and activate the Haywire Might this turn if that is what he wants to do. Obviously don't have to do it right away. You can see if he wants to use the Pentad Prism, get something else done there, and actually does choose to deploy Dryad Arbor instead. I believe that kind of allows him to activate the Wall of Roots on his opponent's upkeep to take care of that Pentad Prism, which is going to be exiled. Go ahead and exile that as we do tick down the Lotus Bloom to 1. Go to draw. Not cut off 5 mana in the next turn is Joseph Carrick, but cut off for 5 mana this turn.
Yep.
And now Carrick in the tank.
So in this kind of matchup, the green-based creature deck, so many of the cards in that deck don't really interact with the combo nature. So having that Haywire Might on turn 2 was really key to interact with his opponent. And then Joseph was like, yeah, you got my Pentad Prism. Pass, I suppose. There were no lands for Joseph. And Joseph doesn't have a lot of cards to play on turn 2, but Connor does have a lot of cards to play on their turn 3 in the form of a Yawgmoth Thran position. And this is exactly what you don't want to see if you're Joseph. Now with Yawgmoth on board, Connor can probably untap and maybe get a win if he's got a Court of Calling and then maybe 2 Young Wolves. But on Joseph's turn, now that Lotus Bloom is in place, so we're going to see if fireworks do begin to start for Joseph. Right,
and this is that kind of mana threshold you're talking about. And actually, Connor, even though he looks to be ahead by every metric, could still be in a little bit of trouble here. Although, Joseph's posturing certainly doesn't give anything away about whether that's true or not. But we're at the requisite mana to cast Ad Nauseam. You could even potentially get tricky with that the Gemstone Mine to allow for Angel's Grace type shenanigans this turn as well, if we have it all dialed up. Have to imagine if that's where we were at, we would see. Okay, we're thinking about I think we're asking about proliferating the suspend counters and whether or not that works based on the posturing from the hands. And that is not a question I know the answer to right off the bat. Any number of permanents and or players. It is neither a permanent or a player in exile. I believe this does not work.
That is accurate. You cannot suspend things that are not in play or nor players. So this Lotus, because Connor was taking a look at Lotus Bloom. Now, the words on Lotus Bloom, the words for the activate ability are pretty simple. It's a black Lotus, 3 mana of any color. But suspend has a lot of rules baggage, so we're trying to see if Connor can interact in that way. Sadly, cannot yet, but we're seeing what Connor does have. He's got something going on. Looks like this is
a Court of Calling based on the creature tapping we got going on here. And there is a Court of Calling.
But Joseph looks like an offer you can't refuse, the Secret Lair Cat and Trace version. So that's one of the few counter spells in his deck that can interact back with the creature deck. But it does take him off of 1 mana for this turn. So now with just 5 mana, he cannot enact that Angel's Grace Ad Nauseam combo. So we're going to see what Connor does here. Okay, Joseph just passes back. At least it's maybe Joseph has 1 more turn to combo off. We'll see if Connor can scrape together a victory on this turn.
You have to imagine if there was an Ad Nauseam in the mix anywhere, maybe it would have happened that turn. Like that one of offer you can't refuse certainly makes the Pact stuff like Intervention Pact look a lot better. That can be a ritual of sorts in that way. Got to use it for its alternative mode, countering spells. Against Connor here. But now, he does get to untap with the 2 treasures, and that's really not where you want to be if you're Joseph Carrick. Giving Connor access to that mana, and now, cashing out creatures to draw cards. Connor has a lot of mana, a lot of potential cards that could happen off of Yawgmoth. And I can't help but think maybe that last turn was really his window to slam the door on this game. And now Connor setting up, seeing if he can do a little bit of punching the door in this game as well. Picked up a copy of Thoughtseize from the sideboard.
Yeah, I like the Thougtseize in Connor's hand. I also like Boseiju, who endures. Is a very strong card for Connor to have. He's got 2 copies of that, and then as a way to disenchant that Lotus Bloom and interact yet again with the Ad Nauseam deck. So if I was Joseph, I'd be a little scared. Yeah, here comes the Thoughtseize. We see Thassa's Oracle. They're playing 2 other cards.
2 other, they look like black. Is that Spoils of the Vault?
Spoils of the Vault, yeah. Which
might be the new art there on Spoils of the Vault. Yeah, it looks like it is. That's the Ultimate Masters artwork there. That's kind of the namesake for helping you find the missing pieces. It kind of does like a little bit of a Forbidden Tutor impression. Does some damage to you as well. It chooses a card name, reveals cards on the top. So you reveal that card, you put that card in your hand, exile all the cards revealed this way, and you lose a life for each of those. And Thassa's Oracle hits the bin.
Which makes sense. Thassa's Oracle Spoils of the Vault is a popular combo for all the CEDH folks out there. So with 2 copies of 1 card in your hand and 1 copy of the other one, Connor, in my mind, correctly takes the 1 copy of Thassa's Oracle. And with just 2 Spoils of the Vault, Joseph's going to have to think really on his feet and use that Scrolls of the Vault just as a way to maybe get some action. But, sadly for Joseph, I think Joseph's going to be relying on that Lotus Bloom a lot, and Connor might have other plans for it.
Yeah, I think Connor kind of wisely resorting to the beatdown strategy here, knowing that, Ad Nauseam is really the problem here as we do go after the Lotus Bloom, probably baiting to see if Joseph would cast one of those Spoils of the Vault, looking for an Ad Nauseam. And maybe an opportunity here. I do believe it is a instant if he wants it. I think he's actually just going to take the land. Might be fine as well. Only one land away from actually just hard casting Ad Nauseam with lands, something you don't really see happen too much, as Plains is going to be the find off of Boseiju.
So now Joseph probably has to act here with maybe just his Spoils of the Vault looking for a card. Like, that's always an option, and really think on your feet in this kind of roguelike nature of piecing together and then an Ad Nauseam combo on the fly with these cards. Yeah. Oh, and it looks like you drew a Sleight of Hand for the turn. So we're going to combo assemble the troops and see what we can find here to actually combo off before these little, green and black creatures do them in.
Yeah, Yawgmoth a lot of times in its early days got made fun of for this mopey beatdown strategy it assembles. Actually going to be pretty relevant here as life total going to matter a lot for Carrick as he tries to slog through and find an Ad Nauseam. Did find Profane Tutor, as you mentioned, Demonic Tutor on suspend, but needs those 2 more turns. And with a Yawgmoth already in play, you really can't feel too comfortable about each draw step you're giving Connor.
Yeah, so Connor is going to play another Surveil land. Yeah, these Surveil lands from Murders of Karlov Manor really have changed most formats, but especially modern, the kind of the fastest, like, widely played format out there. They kind of in the backfield tapped, but you're not going to play on curve every single time. And in a format with 10, 12 fetches, they really help you into turn crack with fetch, kind of draw a card, put this land in the graveyard, or some decks can even use these cards you put in the graveyard. So we're going to Surveil up a Storm here, and we've got a consideration in playing. Right now, Joseph's like, oh, please put in the graveyard. Okay, Wall of Roots in the graveyard, so all good. And Connor's going to untap and see what he can find and try to take down Joseph's Ad Nauseam deck before he gets his namesake card online.
All right, looks like Yawgmoth and a land in hand for Connor. Those not really that good. I believe the Dryad Arbor already in the graveyard. Only one copy of that card in Connor's deck. Can't even find another one to get a redraw off of Yawgmoth. Does have access to Zulaport, Cutthroat, and Yawgmoth, though, to get some beatdowns going. Going to sacrifice the Lighted Halfling. Every draw step a big one. If we find an Undying creature, things start to get really powerful really quickly. Agatha the Soul Cauldron could add to the mix as well. There goes Zulaport, Cutthroat, leaving just Yawgmoth around. And Court of Calling to pick up? That one has to be pretty good. And in the
which Connor can do have access to 5 total mana. So Yawgmoth could get the Hepatra Vizier. That's a really strong card with Yawgmoth, and Hepatra Vizier Poisons does let the Yawgmoth game do some crazy shenanigans with snakes and -1/-1 counters. But that's really all Connor's got going for him. So we'll see what he pulls out from his deck's toolbox.
So I think we have the potential of a little bit more mana, right? We haven't played a land this turn. I think we floated a mana off Delighted Halfling.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's what that die is.
I think we can get Shieldred if we want it, assuming it's still in the deck. Basically, it's access to everything in his deck. And obviously, thinking through what exactly he wants. Looks like we chose to do it for 1. Here comes Young Wolf.
So with this Young Wolf in play, Connor can draw 1 card. And if that other card is a Young Wolf, we're done here. We have all the cards in the world we want. But we're going to see exactly if Connor can just start to get back some cards in his hand, and because he sees that Profane Tutor on suspend count 2, so next turn probably he's pretty safe. Joseph has 2 cards in their hand, which are the 2 Spoils of the Vault, so he's probably safe for 1 more turn. So I think Connor's kind of loading his deck, his board for this turn, for the next turn, then really combo off and kill Joseph.
Right. Yeah, pretty free. Oh, there's another copy Boseiju. That one actually would be pretty good against any potential fast mana that could show up. But like you said, Connor more or less just been loading up over the course of this turn, did upgrade the power and toughness of Young Wolf. And if he finds another creature, things start to get, obviously very powerful very quickly. But with the Profane Tutor, he gets another turn. And I think if he untaps with all this mana again, once, like I said, if you're Carrick, that was already a sweat. You had the potential to just die right there. That's going to be true again next turn. And you still have another turn before your Profane Tutor comes off. Not even a land drop made for Joseph. And back to Connor we go.
Yep. So Connor. So right now, Connor's thinking, all right, this suspend card's going to come off. Joseph will have any card in his deck. He's got 5 mana. I needed to really go this turn. And we can't quite see what Connor drew for the turn, but
I think it's Agatha's Soul Cauldron? What is that?
Soul Cauldron. Oh, let's see. What creatures in the graveyard do we have with activated abilities? There's Delighted Halfling, and
Wall
maybe
of
he can
Roots is the
Wall of
right
Roots.
now.
He could always play a Yawgmoth to legend rule them, and then have that ability on standby for the Young Wolves. But that's kind of out there. So we're seeing what Connor can piece together.
Yeah, I mean, having 2 Yawgmoths, does that do anything with the Young Wolf where you can like activate the Young Wolf Yawgmoth? No, you still need another creature to like put a counter on Yawgmoth himself. And then you can kind of go back and forth that way for a few cycles because I mean he has like 4 toughness, but like I think you need another creature to really get that started because the Young Wolf already has a counter on it. So the Beach Street we go.
Attack for 4, which is relevant against the Ad Nauseam deck, and sometimes, other times, you just cast Angel's Grace, and the life total doesn't actually matter for that turn. So, despite Connor having an awesome start of remove this, kill this, play this, that did weaken his the engine on his combo deck. And so, I think that Connor's going to pass here back with his Soul Cauldron on the play and just hope for the best, which isn't where I'd want to be if I was Connor. But there's not much more you can do. You could sacrifice this Young Wolf, and here we're seeing Beseiju on the Gemstone Cavern, so that maybe you really need that color of that mana. And how many bases could a combo deck be playing anyway?
Sure, exactly. I think that's exactly what Connor's saying. You've played a lot of basics so far. He's like, oh yeah, check out this swap. And
check out this is
sure, whatever.
His 4th basic land, 4/4. So if Connor can somehow get another Beseiju back from his graveyard in some way, he could start then turn those Beseijus into Stone Rains. But that was not the best situation you could hope for. But Connor's playing to his outs. Maybe he only had 3 basics. So I think I would probably make the same play as well. And I think Joseph Strug's like, yeah, I would too. But here we have
Joseph notably it doesn't actually take you off Ad Nauseam mana, right? So like if we search here, we still need another mana source of some kind to make Ad Nauseam happen. And Connor, of course, willing to commit, and Gemstone Mine's it. Connor really only willing to commit the Beseiju because of Agatha Soul Cauldron and Haywire Might can kind of make that happen, I believe. But here is Spoils of the Vault. We knew about those. Angel's Grace is going to make sure he doesn't die, so he's going to name whatever he wants and go flipping to find whatever he names. Wasn't Ad Nauseam as we go past that one.
Yeah, so right now, Thassa's Oracle, there are 4 in the deck because he can Thassa's Oracle and then cast Spoils of the Vault. Yep. Now then he can cast Spoils of the Vault.
One, and then that's game.
Yeah,
you mentioned CDH. This certainly looks like a CDH finish here. Thassa's Oracle, Spoils of the Vault, making it happen. And I don't think there's any recourse for Connor.
Yeah, they're most likely not. So you play Thassa's Oracle with the trigger on the stack. I'm not going to scry quite yet. And I'm going to cast Spoils of the Vault again. I'll name, I don't know, I'll name Jace the Mind Sculptor, or You're Already Dead, a card from Neo.
I love You Are Already Dead. That's my name.
That's a good one. Yep. A very well-designed card made by a very handsome and wonderful person during the time of Kamigawa. So what happens now is Joseph plays this card and will name a card not in his deck. Connor then gets to see the deck because you do have to
that's what we're doing here. Connor gets to look at the deck before that trigger does resolve. Gonna go ahead and just check and see how he's sideboarded. We see like some Veil of Summers and a couple other things among the mix. And so Connor kind of taking note of that. I believe the Rest in Peace you called out sitting there on top, something to note as well. Connor does seem already pretty loaded on the disenchant effects and actually wasn't good enough there as, accessed as many Haywire Mites really as he wanted, had a Beseiju to spare, and Joseph Carrick able to get it done with good old-fashioned Thassa's Oracle, Spoils of the Vault, Angel's Grace. Nonsense.
Yep. So you see exactly what happened here. The aggro deck, aggro in quotes, was the beats quite weren't there. The combo finish couldn't appear. And Connor was able to interact, kill your Pentad Prism, kill your Lotus Bloom, try to Stone Rain you, and they had all this interaction, Thoughtseize as well. But because they didn't have enough pressure, just was able to eventually get a combo together and was able to combo off. And you kind of see this a lot. And that's the danger of diluting an aggro deck with these interaction cards, that sometimes you just need that clock to put pressure on the combo deck. But just didn't get there at that game. So now we get to go to game 3, and this is pretty exciting. I don't get to see Ad Nauseam in Modern or in any format a lot, so this is really fun to see.
Yeah, I mean, this is a far more competitive match than you'd expect, too. I mean, you kind of, when you talk about 2 decks that are just ships passing the night, trying to execute their combo as quick as possible, traditionally, one is just faster than the other. And that one's going to be, favored in the matchup overall. Here, there's enough interaction points between the 2 decks and some failure rates amongst the decks as well that you really kind of get to see a little bit scrappier and a more interactive game. We saw that there. We saw counter spells coming out of the Ad Nauseam deck. We saw, discard spells coming from Connor's side, and that didn't really seem like they worked out too much. I mean, you were able to cash in one of those Spoils of the Vault, refine Thoracle, and make the Thoracle Spoils thing still happen, even around the earlier Thoughtseize that normally is pretty devastating to decks like Ad Nauseam. Exactly kind of what you were highlighting too with, when you have all this interaction, all that kind of stuff, you're less all in on your combo. And the modern format at large requires that of the Golgari Yawgmoth deck. But in this matchup in particular, Connor, I'm sure, would much rather just have his entire deck be tutors, creatures for tutors, just execute the combo as quick as possible. But that's not reality. And now we have like a really close match in our hands. And that's part of what makes Modern really special, in my opinion.
Yeah, this is really fun to see, and you get to really see the cards in these decks tee up against one another. So in Connor's Golgari Yawgmoth deck, some of the creatures like Orcish Bowmasters, Young Wolf, they're just like little 1/1s that without other cards to work with them, they don't do a lot. Agatha's Soul Card, and we saw that there. He had this card, this really amazing, sweet, complicated card. It didn't really do anything. Meanwhile, if you look at Joseph's deck, every card in his deck looks for cards as mana or as your win condition. All those cards are so important. They all matter. And the Connor's creature-based deck really has to find the cards that do matter. Like Thoughtseize matters, but Seiju matters. Wall Roots, it kind of matters. It can add mana, but it doesn't actually win the game like a lot of cards in Joseph's deck does. So now we're going to see these sideboard cards. Like, does the Rest in Peace happen? Do we get to see like maybe a Force of Vigor or another kind of a disenchant happen on Connor's side? But I'm excited to see how this game goes down.
Yeah, the Connor kind of here prepping. We saw a little bit of his sideboarding there at the end of game 2. I think we saw a bunch of Grists in the sideboard. Makes a lot of sense. Not a lot of creatures you want to pick off with that one. And didn't see the Force of Vigors in. I think we saw him kind of reconsider those after seeing Rest in Peace. Only one copy, and he's kind of overloaded. I'd be surprised if he did bring them in, but a little bit of reconsideration for number 6 on our leaderboard. Connor Mullaly, of course, 2022 Player of the Year, kind of making his return here in his RIW polo, looking very sharp. Ooh. Connor, a mainstay of this event. Haven't seen Carrick play as much, but I'm excited by his deck choice, if nothing else. Very calm, cool, and collected as Joseph Carrick this entire match. In I would say what is kind of like a high stakes deck. You probably have the highest density of cards in your deck that say you just lose the game on them. That's
true. So
no turn 1 play from Connor.
No turn play at all. We see a Court of Calling in Connor's hand, but Joseph did mulligan instead, which is fine. These kind of decks can mulligan well sometimes. Sometimes you mulligan to Oblivion, but that's the nature of the game. But Joseph does have a Lotus Bloom on turn 1, which is the most important thing on the deck, in the deck at all, is having this mana acceleration early on. He's got a Preordain. You scry 2, then draw a card. Way better than Serum Visions. Take that.
Way better. Big upgrade to the Ad Nauseam deck. To the extent there has been some over the course of Ad Nauseam's lifetime, this deck's taken many shapes and sizes. No longer is the Lightning Storm the win condition as people try to figure out if discarding land works or not. It doesn't. It really ever work. But now has Thassa's Oracle to clean that up. Preordained, the last big upgrade, I'd say, over the course of whatever. I mean, you can count things like an offer you can't refuse and stuff like that. But Preordain adds a lot to this deck. Very, very powerful cantrip. As here comes Connor's version. We have Preordain at home. It's a surveil land.
Yeah.
Get a look at that.
Preordain. I played Preordain in Legacy before, which is kind of like Modern, but the combos are like turn 1 and 2, basically. But they become more similar.
It's pretty good stuff with that. Here comes Wall of Roots on turn 2. No follow-up for Connor. Has to imagine there needs to be a Yawgmoth hanging out in that hand for this hand to be so slow, and a keep for Connor. Some interaction in the Yawgmoth as here comes Profane Tutor on Suspend, now aligned with Lotus Bloom for when it will come off Suspend.
And I think we found the turn that Joseph is looking to combo off. It'll be turn 4. And here Connor...
Yeah, right.
You're right. Yawgmoth is in the hand, ready to be deployed. Connor could play that or Concord for 2 with Wall of Roots doing double duty for the Convoke spell. But I would imagine you just want to deploy your 2/4 threat position that was the cause of a lot of death and destruction for various planes of the multiverse. But we're going to see what Connor chooses to do on his turn.
Yeah, I think that when you talk about Ad Nauseam, it's always been a turn 4 deck through and through, in line with decks like Scapeshift and stuff like that. Over the modern, Modern's history, that has been the appeal of Ad Nauseam, is basically combos on turn 4 if you don't interact with it every single time, and having a deck that's just that powerful, in the abstract. It doesn't matter how much other fancy stuff you're doing. If you just die on turn 4, your deck's going to be pretty powerful. Certainly the appeal, as it dodges a lot of the common interaction, and you can put a lot of your powerful cards on Suspend and hide them from things like Grief and Thoughtseize, which we've seen come up as well. As here's one of the copies of Grist that was left in. Gonna go making an insect as it mills over Agatha's Soul Cauldron.
Yep. Grist the Hunger Tide, one of my favorite creatures to find with Court of Calling. It's a removal spell on a creature that's a Planeswalker, but that's Modern Horizons for you, really bending the rules of the game. So Connor has played a Grist, I think, to maybe keep Court of Calling open, but it looks like Joseph did draw his 1 copy of Rest in Peace. And there go the graveyard. So Not a graveyard for Joseph, which is probably fine. Not a graveyard for Connor, which, right now it looks okay. But the Yawgmoth Undying plan with Young Wolf, that's turned off right now until Connor can get an answer, maybe another Seiju or something. Or a Haywire Might, maybe.
Haywire Might. I mean, you talk about the toolbox nature of this deck. This is certainly this at work. Court of Calling, kind of, I guess, the iconic card when you talk about creature toolbox for this exact play pattern. Oh, here's a problem card. All right, great. Well, I'll cast my instant here on end step. Go find that. We'll clean that up on my turn. Yeah, I have to use my cord, but you know what? The problem's gone. And, there's a few more problems on suspend for Connor Mullaly, but has the answer to the rest in peace dialed up, but a very powerful start for Joseph Carrick so far. Having all the suspend cards and rest in peace does a lot to stop him from just dying out the gates. We'll see if Connor has enough interaction to work through it.
Yeah, so you trade that speed for flexibility. We've got Court of Calling your deck. So Connor has the flexibility to get rid of that rest in peace so that Connor can really do his comboing. But there are two very scary cards on suspend one under Joseph's Joseph's control, on Joseph's side of the game board, because they're not playing pieces in play right now. So Joseph will have lots of mana next turn and any card in the deck that he wants. So Connor is really up against the wall here and needs to do something to maybe eat together some cool play before Joseph can combo up. But maybe Connor's on the play of, dear gosh, I hope with those 5 cards you draw and the card you tutor for, you do not have the 6 mana and the 2 required cards to just kill me on your turn.
Well, and here I think we see Connor giving a lot of consideration. We saw another copy of Court of Calling in his hand. Maybe we need to be thinking about, what if we have to use this Haywire Might on Lotus Bloom instead of the Rest in Peace? Obviously Rest in Peace feels like the obvious target. We need to get our combo back up and running. But if it's going to take him a few turns to get that set up, and there's a potential you just die, maybe the answer is you want to try to save the Haywire Might. There's not a lot of rush. You can maybe start attacking, getting that kind of stuff done. We do see a copy of Yawgmoth in hand, doesn't really solve the problem right now. Like I said, the Ad Nauseam is so good at just assembling the combo in turn 4 and basically face up looks like it has it. I mean, Profane Tutor plus Lotus Bloom. I mean, you sequence those in the right order. Get your Profane Tutor first, grab your Ad Nauseam. Lotus Bloom comes off suspend. That's 5 mana. You can't interact with that well with Haywire Might. And then you get to just cast Ad Nauseam right away and see what happens. Of course, you do need Angel's Grace and stuff like that to really kind of set the whole thing off. But we already look like we have most of the pieces on the table, and that's going to cause Connor to put a lot of pause into what he's doing this turn as he does hold up Court of Calling, passing back to Joseph Carrick, who is going to go tutoring.
Yep, so Connor has that Court of Calling that he's thinking, should I maybe get a Fulminator Mage if you boarded that in to destroy a land on Joseph's side? Is this Haywire Might going to be targeting this Lotus Bloom? Joseph unspins them in this order so that the Lotus Bloom is in play, but then he looks for a card, and then we're going to see if Connor lets Joseph go to his draw step, to his main phase 1, with that mana from Lotus Bloom. I can't imagine he does, but we're going to see what happens.
Yeah, let's see exactly what we're going to do. Like I said, he doesn't have Angel's Grace plus Ad Nauseam right now. So, obviously, I think Carrick is going to hold it if he can. Now, we'll see if Connor actually lets him do that. But, of course, he can cast the Ad Nauseam if he wants, as here comes the Haywire Might going after the Lotus Bloom. He can just cast the Haywire Might if he wants. Or, sorry, he can just cast the Ad Nauseam if he wants to. Just use his high life total to try to make stuff happen. Chooses not to, as Haywire Might goes to the exile zone.
He can, cast 5 mana, draw, who knows, 8 cards perhaps. But every card he draws brings him closer to death. And Connor doesn't have a lot of pressure, but he does have a grist taking up 1 more power, which is cumulative. Make 1 more creature. That's 1 more creature. Now we know that Joseph didn't have the combo in his hand, but Connor sure as heck didn't. So I like that play of getting rid of the mana, so that leaves Joseph down to 2 lands. Sleight of Hand it into a 3rd land, maybe a Pentad Prism here. Thassa's Oracle, just a naked Oracle. You know what? It's a 1/3. It stops those insects dead in their tracks. I'm gonna look at these top 2 cards and see if I want them going on. Thassa's Oracle can be cast as a creature and not a win condition for the alternate mode. So I like this play from Joseph.
Yeah, I hear a lot of jargon thrown around when you talk about card design, where everything's either a split card or kicker. Here we're seeing Thassa's Oracle's split card version, the play a blocker instead of just win the game. And a blocker it will be for all of these 1/1s and such. That coming down is here comes Orcish Bowmaster on end step. Sleight of Hand actually notably kind of gets around there. If there was a Preordain there instead, could have gotten an extra point on the house with the Bowmasters. Gets to dodge that, playing Sleight of Hand there instead of Preordain, assuming he had both or whatever, but a little bit of upside there. Get a look at Bowmasters.
Yeah, Bowmasters
generally, and would have put Joseph's card.
Yeah, generally pretty good against these control-y sort of decks, but a lot of the cards in Joseph's decks don't say draw a card. They say put them in your hand. Gosh, finally, Orcish Bowmaster, what are you doing?
When does this trigger?
You don't get those cards. You don't have reach for being an archer. Really, what are you doing here? step up the game, Orcish Bowmasters. Nobody's really playing you. So that's a joke. A lot of people play Orcish Bowmasters. It is
Who's designing these cards anyway?
Yeah,
I mean,
the One Ring, the one copy of the One Ring in Joseph's deck. It can get that. They're the same set. They're close bedfellows, as it were. So Connor has a Yawgmoth in his hand, is thinking about, should I play the Yawgmoth? Like, what am I doing with my life right now? It looks like the Yawgmoth.
That's a lot of creatures at a chord. I mean, I feel like this is close to just, I mean, not deterministic, but like certainly, I mean, what it is, like 8 cards. Your life total is under no pressure from Joseph. I mean, you can just throw the creatures around if you want. The only considerations really are if you want to like attack.
Yeah.
Gun down the Thassa's Oracle if you want to, like in the process, because we don't have an Undying creature. Get a look at Yawgmoth here. The namesake card of the Golgar Yawgmoth deck has protection from humans. Thassa's Oracle, Merfolk Wizard, not a human. Does pay a life. Can choose to put a -1/- counter on a target creature. Usually do that to your own creatures, but here might be the rare time. It's time to gun down some other stuff. And yeah, it looks like what we're doing here.
Yeah, I play a lot of Cube, and Yawgmoth's ability usually targets opponent's creatures in Cube when you're playing
in Cube, fair.
Yeah, yeah, but this isn't Cube, this is Modern, and so we're trying really to combo off here. So Connor is trying to think of, maybe I'm just on the aggro play, kill your Thassa's Oracle, attack with my kind of anemic creatures, maybe proliferate, Grist counter. Can't quite ultimate with Grist, you could, it wouldn't do a lot. But this Orcish army can get larger with this proliferate, and that's the rare, let's power go up instead of power go down for the Yawgmoth side.
Very, very true. Grist's going to tick up to 6. No considerations really to the ultimate. That one is actually shut down by Rest in Peace. Cares about creature cards in the graveyard. But does make more 1/1s and mills over Shieldred. That one actually not too good here really anyway. As Thassa's Oracle is shrinking down to a -1/1 creature. At this
nice work. You did the math.
Yeah, thanks. I've been known to do math once or twice. Not well, but I do math.
Yep.
Thassa's Oracle finished off.
Yep. So now Connor can begin the attacking. Right now, I think it's for 2 with the Orcish army and the Bowmasters, but we're going to see what Connor has next instead. Maybe another Surveil Land. If you look in his deck list, he has only 1 copy of Underground Mortuary, so take that. No Surveil for the turn. You can't draw a card.
No Surveil.
I just want Surveil Lands and everything.
It's interesting. Connor had the option there. I mean, obviously, don't want to grab an Undying creature in the face of Rest in Peace. Had the option to grab something like Hapatra. I think that card does work underneath Graveyard Hate. -1/- counters. Yeah, you get to make some snakes and really set things off a little bit more. Chose not to. Has other plans for this Court of Calling. Interested to see what that manifests into. Is Delighted Halfling added to the mix. Keeps the math the same as far as Court of Calling does go. Can still grab a 2-drop right now.
Grab a 3-drop even.
It's good. Yeah, because of the Wall of Roots, I believe.
Yeah, Wall of Roots.
We used Wall of Roots to deploy Yawgmoth, right?
Well, yeah, but on Joseph's Joseph's turn,
right.
you can core. Maybe you get a Fulminator Mage to interact with your opponent.
You really want to grab this Fulminator Mage so bad. It would be good. Yeah, blowing up lands here actually would look really good.
I want to play a 6-mana Stone Rain. Like, that sounds great. Let's just do that.
Old-time Magic players, and they're blowing up lands. They just love it. You can't get away from it.
Can't get away from it. So we have Profane Tutor from Joseph just on suspend, and Connor is going to play this Court of Calling. We'll see exactly what he gets for it. It looks like he is doing it for 3, so we'll see. I don't know. It could be the Patra, like you said. That'd be pretty nice.
Can you follow your age? I don't know that it's actually the deck, but if it is, I mean, like,
it might not be. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't. Connor is a way better pot of this deck than I could ever hope to be. And here we have a 1-drop Young Wolf, the classic pay 6 mana, get a 1/1. You love to see it. But Connor has D plans with 2 Young Wolves. Generally, you can draw a lot of cards, have things, but with that Rest in Peace in play, Young Wolf gets old way quicker than it's used to.
It's interesting. We're kind of seeing the repercussions of doing the Haywire Might thing. Now, I'm not saying that, I mean, obviously we know that there was a tutor off and, you kind of needed to pick off that Lotus Bloom and not die. But this recipe now kind of gets to clock in and go to work. And it certainly is. I think Connor would have had this game already rolled up if not for this Rest in Peace, a card that he did see after game number 2. And here is going to have to try to find a way to win the game with manual mode creatures without it. Ignoble Hierarch added to the mix after Wall of Roots hit the bin. Gonna sack that one right away. Green redraw. Cycle my Ignoble Hierarch.
Okay, I'll lose a life though. It's black. I'll lose a life.
Sure.
You lose a life, you can do anything you want.
2-mana follow-up. It's another copy of Wall of Roots. This one can get activating right away. We'll see exactly what he wants to do. Float a green, sacrifice. So that one actually still makes a mana at least, so it's still kind of just a green cycle. He's really just cycling through his creatures Looking
Yep.
for what?
Well,
Another Beseiju?
he did pick up a Court of Calling. There are 2 copies of Beseiju in Connor's deck, but now with the Court of Calling, we're going to see what creature he get. Normally, like I said, you have a second Young Wolf, but that doesn't do so much right now.
Yeah, it
So
doesn't do a
maybe,
lot with the recipe still in play. I mean, honestly, it's funny. We milled over the Shield and I was like, that was not too good here. It would actually be kind of good here.
now,
If you're looking to
that
just get someone dead quick, the card gets it done, but it's in exile.
Yeah, that is probably the biggest like threat that Connor could assemble with his Court of Calling. But that in the graveyard now, or in exile, now he's got to figure out what can I assemble with this Court of Calling that can increase the speed of my clock against the combo deck before this Profane Tutor comes off of suspend. And I'm not sure, is it Orcish Bowmasters? Is it the Hepatra somewhere? But it doesn't matter what I'm guessing, speculating. We're going to find out right now what Connor's going to tutor up.
Yeah, we're gonna see. I mean, if Young Wolf was his best play last turn, I don't know what. Yeah, I don't know what we're looking at this turn, other than another Young Wolf from a big Court of Calling. We'll see. We'll see what Connor's up to. Hepatra might not even be in the deck anymore. Usually not that good. It is Young Wolf, which appears to be the best creature in the deck right now.
Connor's looking for the Beseiju who endures. I think both are still live in his deck,
Right.
and maybe one's in his hand. And that could just take the win maybe right here. But we're gonna see Connor has to play, and now another Court of Calling. Whoa, another one. Oh, sure, yeah. It was the attack, then put the Court of Calling that I cast from my hand in the graveyard. Yeah.
Sure,
Okay,
sure,
yeah. So
His,
Connor
his attack for 6 does put Carrick down to 10. Don't believe we actually have enough power to get the job done immediately. Another land out of the mix for Carrick, 2 mana. It's Thassa's Oracle. Number 2, do we have Angel's Grace and Spoils? We're reaching for more mana. It's Angel's Grace. There goes the last land. Is it Spoils the Vault?
Yep.
It spoils the vault. Just like game number 2, here comes another Thassa's Oracle kill. And Connor with a turn the Earth in hand that can only disrupt it. Not going to get it done. Takes care of it. And Joseph Carrick going to win this game 2-1 over Connor Mullaly. And what was, I mean, I'd like to say explosive, but there was a lot of back and forth. And then the very end, just Thassa's Oracle getting it done. I mean, this is what people complain about in Commander. Seeing it in Modern is wild. Quite a change of texture.
Yeah, we saw Connor make so many game actions. Play this creature second, draw a card, play Court of Calling, get this young, we'll do this thing, hit the curse, activate. And meanwhile, the other side, Joseph's just like, I'll play land go, Okay, are you done now? Here's this card. Here's this card. Here's this card.
One, this card plus this card.
Are we
good
here with the Leovold? And that's sometimes what happens. The Golgari creature that couldn't quite get the beats quite there in time. But we got to see Ad Nauseam, an old hat of the Modern format, come back and be like, combo still a real thing, despite everyone trying to be mid-rangey with pitch elementals, but still has what it takes to take down some games in Modern.
Absolutely. Well,